Good morning, Sunday morning, 7 a.m. Absolutely gorgeous up here this morning. Weather's really nice. And lockdown has been lifted somewhat, so we're getting to enjoy a little bit more freedom. There we go. 7 o'clock Sunday morning, hope you're well. Good morning. Good morning. So, I'm going to talk about narcissism this morning because it seems to be a word that's... Good morning, Sharon. I'm going to do a quick vlog this morning on narcissism. Narcissism seems to be a word that's getting bandied about, probably overused and overly used and overly misunderstood or misinterpreted by many people. So narcissism, where did it stem from? Well, it started from a Greek mythology, and there was a guy called Narcissus who was a hunter, and he was tired of hunting and he wanted to go out and find a mate, and he set out on discovery and found a pool where he saw his own reflection, and he fell in love with himself, fell into the pool of water and died. Metaphorically saying that he became so obsessed with himself that he disappeared and drowned, and in his memory they planted a flower, and the flower was called a narcissist, and so it goes. But the word itself sounds very toxic, doesn't it? Narcissist, narcissism, narcissistic personality disorder. It sounds like a toxic wound oozing pus. But narcissism is on the rise as a personality disorder, or at least evident, and I don't think there's one clear definitive answer as to why that has happened. Has it been since, I think one study was that, in the 60s there was this kind of more community sort of vibe, and then 70s, 80s, 90s and so on, it became a lot more about the individual. Has there seen a rise in it post-war? I guess you would really need to study the statistics. I find that a bit challenging, really, looking at statistics. So, morning Willie, morning Sharon, morning Lorraine. So, talking about narcissism. So, a word that gets bandied about, it's like people saying, I'm paranoid. And in actual fact, they might be having a little bit of difficult thoughts and feelings. But paranoia is really when you think that people are coming up the back of the field right now to get you with machetes. And similarly, people are just throwing this word about, narcissist, oh, she's a narcissist, or he's a narcissist. And in actual fact, like many mental health issues or emotional issues that we attempt to describe in the soundbite of a vlog or a text, it's very, very difficult because it's so multifaceted and it's so complicated. Now, narcissism is very complicated because when you think of somebody as a narcissist, you think of somebody with a grandiose personality that's full of confidence, that's very charismatic, that's able to hold an audience, that's very single-minded and selfish. Right? And that's what you immediately think of. But it's so complicated that it's not. Now, simple narcissism, if you start off it's looking at simple narcissism and you take it all the way up to NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder then starts to teeter over the edge and starts to fall over the crevice into the world of pathological sociopathic type behaviours. So, there are no definitive lines between many and most personality disorders because somewhere it overlaps with something else and somewhere else it overlaps. And I said a comment the other day there. Now, I've probably suffered with anxiety most of my life, which I only started to find out when I started getting EEG electroencephalographs in my brain taken as part of a training that I was doing to look at reading electroencephalographs and indeed go through neurofeedback. And 3 different very well-educated men, you know, that have been doing this for years, take Polaroid snapshots at my brain and show that my brain is very high in beta, which is a very fast-moving frequency, right? And all of them asked me, do you suffer from anxiety? And of course I said no. But if I've had that state of mind for 20, 30, 40 years even, how am I going to be aware of it? That's my natural state. So in times when my anxiety has been really, really high, I have displayed characteristics of not listening, not able to listen to what somebody else is saying, because I've got this almost like tinnitus type noise going on inside my brain because the engine's revving so hard. Now, would that be narcissism? That I'm not able to listen to what other people are saying? I can't focus on my external environment because all my attention and all my focus was in the past going to feelings of anxiety, right? So how do you know that you're a narcissist? How do you know that you're acting narcissistically? We have got an uprise in the millenniums coming up through, and, you know, in the next sort of 5 to 10 years, they're going to take up, you know, a large percentage of our workforce. And they've been brought up with social media, they've been brought up with iPhones, they've been brought up with technology, they've been brought up with status. You know, we almost honour football players. They're almost like gods. Football players and drug dealers have become like gods. Everybody wants the big stuff. Everybody wants to project a false image of themselves out there. Now, again, what's underneath the narcissism, rather than just throwing a narcissistic attack. Now, if you are in a narcissistic, abusive type relationship, I'm not belittling that, and I'll talk about that. A lot of narcissistical traits is people that lash out. What we have seen on a negative, very, very negative side of this pandemic is that domestic abuse and violence went up through the roof. People are really, really suffering, and that is something that we need to look at. And one of the traits of somebody with narcissistic personality disorder is they would use intimidation tactics of violence and instill fear in people. Okay, now back to why are we branding this word about? And again, I've said that at the beginning, narcissism is something that is overly used and certainly overly misunderstood. Oh, you're a narcissist because you value materialistic things. You're a narcissist because... Now, it's a lot more subtle than that. Now, some of the behaviours that you will see from a narcissist, which is common through the board, is a thing called gaslighting. So a narcissist will actually have you believe that you're going mad, right? I never had that conversation with you. Now, one of the classic things that shows up, and this is way out of my pay grade and way out of my education, but speaking to psychiatrists, if you were interviewing psychiatrists about narcissistic personality disorder, if you ask somebody something, oh, remember we did that, the answer they will give you is, I don't remember. I can't remember that. And just shut the conversation off, right? So what's happening there in the person that's asking is that their thoughts are not being validated, and you're left wondering if it actually did happen or not. So somebody that says to you consistently, it's not just a one-off, oh, you know, I don't remember it, and you turn around and go, oh, I watched a vlog and that means you're a narcissist. Absolutely not. Consistently. It's a consistent thing. I never said that, or, you know, what are we doing this weekend? Oh, I'm going away for a spa day with my girlfriends, or, oh, I'm going away hiking with the boys. And then the other individual says, when were you going to tell me that? Oh, I've already had that conversation with you, I told you that. But you were busy, remember, you were jumping between cars because you were moving something. All right, yeah, they must have told me that. So gaslighting is a very common trait. They make you believe that you're wrong. They lie consistently, you know, even if there's evidence. I mean, imagine somebody turning around and saying, how could you say this? Like a football player turning around and whatever, he's in a court battle for something, and he turns around and says, on paper, I've never taken drugs in my life before, and in actual fact, somebody's got a picture of him snorting cocaine or smoking weed or whatever, right? Now, they're lying in order to get their own way, but they have got this great ability to be able to manipulate and triangulate their environment so much so that they're able to play almost like bloody Mary Poppins or, Dr. Dolittle if they're a guy. They present to the world that they're so nice, that they're so generous, that they're such lovely people, but they're so dissociated from their shadow they don't even know they have one. And narcissism can be born in an individual from parents that you've got to look at it. It's very, very complicated to talk about this. But my point that I would like to get across around this is it's a word that's being bandied about right now. Everybody's using it. Oh, they're a narcissist. You must be a narcissist. I'm in a relationship with a narcissist. So if I'm in a relationship with a narcissist, I must be an empath. So it's like I'm an empath now, right? Because they've Googled something that narcissists attract empaths. And then the empath starts telling everybody that they're an empath. Oh, I'm an empath. I've attracted this narcissist to me. And they become narcissistic about telling the world that they're an empath. So it's a word to me that's getting bandied about, it's getting overly used, and it's totally misunderstood. It's such a complicated subject to look into. And personally, this is only my belief system. And, if any of my colleagues are watching this and you want to challenge me on that, fantastic, please. Love criticism. Love that I can look and maybe make it a little bit better, or indeed look at where I've got my theory from and it's wrong, and that's cool. So please do. But my belief is that many illnesses can go undiagnosed and come across as narcissism. As I said, I've shared before when, I've probably, until recently, certainly in the last 5 years, suffered from high levels of anxiety, which would make me like everybody else. I was like bloody Victor Meldrew at one point in my life, because it came across as if I was like somebody would park next to my driveway and I would get myself really Victor Meldrew about that, right? Now that would look like, I've got a control issue, but it wasn't. It was coming from anxiety, which was probably coming from a degree of OCD, a slight degree of OCD that I had. So it may have looked like narcissism or narcissistic traits, but when you actually start to go and break it down, I spent 3 or 4 years in codependency fellowship meetings, and a lot of those behaviours were set up from other attributing factors, right? So before you go branding your partner as a narcissist after watching this, it's very, very complicated, right? And how does it get born in children? How does narcissism come about in children? So a lot of people go, narcissism came about in children because our parenting style have changed, and we've started giving praise for everything, and every child gets a trophy, and every child's da-da-da-da-da-da. So studies are now looking at, we give our children all this praise, right? Possibly highly likely, right? Don't know about you, but please have a look round about you when the shops start opening up again, right? And look at the amount of children that's feet and body is growing at the fastest pace in its life. Yet you see 3-year-old kids with Prada trainers on, Stone Island jumpers, CP company t-shirts. I can go on and on and on. You've got children now that are wearing nothing but branded clothes, right? Take it back to our days, born in the 70s, MD that was born in the 70s. You had an old pair of jeans or joggy bums. You spent your summers in a pair of wellies that probably cost a couple of quid, and there wasn't any label on them. And your gym shoes were what we used to call penny blacks. They were like a pair of slip-on black canvas shoes with a wee bit of elastic at the front that may get them on. Now, we used to batter about the gym hall with those on for hours at a time. And did it crush my toes or, damage my feet? No. Whereas kids have got these trainers, they've got have you seen them? They've got like soles on them that are like yay high, that look as if they've been pumped up with gas. And are they any more effective in the gymnasium than we were? But So, narcissism, born out of this designer, glitzy, footballer, drug dealer kind of world that we inhabit. Okay, that's one way of looking at it. It's also born in an individual out of having parents that are very cold, very emotionally unavailable, very stern, very strict. Now, look back at people's upbringing. You know, father, the authoritarian, the quiet, silent man that says very little, emotionally unavailable, and he was the authoritative one that would dish out the discipline. Or the father never played with the children. The father never had any emotional connection, and have this fantastic, what would look like charismatic way of being able to be very academic, dissociated from any feeling, and be like this walking brain. I mean, one that I particularly pay attention to now, as with many, it falls into many categories. I just find it very interesting. Take yourself into a situation when you're sitting with a friend or a colleague, or anybody for that matter. Your phones are out your pockets, they're on their desk, right? And that high-pitched chime of a text message coming in, and you're sitting with somebody. Now, unless they've pre-told you, I'm sitting my phone there, I'm waiting for a really important text to let me know what time I've got to pick my boss up for the train station, right? You're then forewarned about that. But phone goes down, ping, the other person's attention goes directly to the phone. You're in the middle of a conversation. That conversation could be very meaningful and impactful to you, and that person picks up their phone and starts looking at it. Okay, rude, yes, but what that person's actually unconsciously communicating with you is that you are not as important as whatever the person that they're choosing to give their time to and respond to them, and completely deny your emotional needs, right? So as parents, we've got children. Children are getting louder, they're jumping about more, they're doing their little pirouettes and their dances in the living room. And all they want really at you to do is turn around and look at them and say, cool, that's really good, you've really improved on that. Good job, great effort. But we've got a society of children that are sitting right now, and mothers and fathers are finding it that it's more, it's a better use of their resource of time to sit on their phone looking at the external world than it is to cause any focus to the internal world. So, narcissism, narcissistic people, not going into the pathological, sociopathic type of narcissism. I think we all have a degree of narcissism, and narcissism can be a very healthy thing if you know you've got it. Because like everything, there's a dance between a good side of having something and a bad side of having something. And if you're getting pulled more into the bad side of something, like as I've said, anxiety is a survival mechanism. Anxiety is a positive thing to prompt us to action, to get our needs met. But when anxiety becomes crippling and debilitating, it's that we've gave all our attention over to that. So, narcissistic traits, if you're living with somebody with narcissism, they will use a lot of gaslighting techniques. They will tell you about conversations that they've had. They will make things up about you. They're very, very convincing people. They'll act like Mary Poppins. They'll act very, very well, right? Now, when you turn around and say, like an attack or violence, well, yes, men are predominantly more physically stronger than women, and that can be a form of attack, absolutely. But look at the power that women have with men over their children, and that a woman can turn around and say, well, if you do that, I'm just going to leave you with the kids and you'll never see them, right? That's violence. That's an attack, right? So gaslighting is one of the major trends of a narcissist. They'll tell you about things that you've never had. You'll start to doubt your own narrative. They've got a very manipulative way of being able to have... The only people they'll have in their life as friends is people that can do something for them. So they might have, for an example, say somebody's got 3 or 4 dogs, right? They'll get a friend that maybe only works part-time that loves dogs, and then they'll they'll steer the relationship towards a way of, oh, it's great that the dogs got on so well with you and that you like them so much. How about I gave you £10 a day or whatever, and you could walk my dogs. And you then, because you've started to have some kind of idealisation towards that person might have a slightly higher social status than you might have, or might have skills and attributes that you don't have. So there's a little bit of a submissive stroke dominant or inferior superior relationship going on, which could then get described as the narcissist and the empath, etc, etc, right? So narcissists will only have people in their life that can give them some kind of something, from looking after their dogs to washing their cars to whatever that might be, right? And they're extremely manipulative people, and they're great at being very, very cold. So a narcissist can shut off their emotions when they're with you. Now, if you've listened to some of our other vlogs that have went on, we are social animals, and the thing that we all crave more than oxygen, probably, or as equally as oxygen, is connection. We want attachment, but you will never feel that you're able to attach to a narcissist, because they're living so far up into their mind, their almost academic life and mindset, that they're super, super intelligent. The majority of them are very, very clever, but you don't actually feel as if you're getting any connection for them, and you're actually left like a little puppy looking for some kind of love. Now, also, ways to look at them is they're kind of fanatical. They become fanatical about whatever it is that they get into, whatever hobby that might be. So it could be anything from, God knows, what could it be? You go blank when you're having these kind of chats, but motorbikes. Somebody's into motorbikes. I'm into motorbikes, right? So that's why I said that. Motorbikes, but they become fanatical about motorbikes, right? They actually lose themselves in it. So when they're with you, your wife or your husband, you're sitting there thinking about motorbikes, and they might turn round and have a collection of motorbikes, and they'll all be very well looked after. And then what people will do is people will then they want to naturally gravitate towards a narcissist, because a narcissist can elude, on one side of it, very much elude confidence and strength, as if they have some kind of superior knowledge, right? Now, we mere mortals want some of that. So what can then happen is that we will find ourselves gravitating and getting into hobbies, starting to get into motorbikes or whatever. Because really the reason we're doing that is we're wanting them to see that we're like them, and because they then might see that we're like them, then they might like us. Complicated, I know, right? They might become fanatical, or they might be obsessed. People with narcissism, pictures of themselves all around about their house, so motorbikes. Pictures of themselves on their first motorbike with a wee trophy, and their second motorbike, and their third motorbike, and other motorbikes, and them out on motorbike holidays. And you get into somebody's house and they've got 30 or 40 pictures of themselves on a motorbike. You're dealing with somebody with narcissism, right? Because they like to look at themselves. It's quite voyeuristic, right? So there's that aspect of it. The gaslighting, flying monkeys, the triangulation. So what they'll start to then do is, narcissists have this very, very apt ability of being able to listen to your conversations, listen to what it is that you're saying, and then a narcissist will, morning Kevin, if you're still there, we will tie this in with the 12 steps, as I attempt to do my best to do with everything. But so a narcissist will do triangulation. So for an example, where Kevin's in, he's just come in, right? A guy I know, I really value him. His work around addiction is absolutely fantastic. And see, there's me getting distracted again. So they'll do like triangulation. So they'll listen to you, they're great listeners, and they'll find your flaws and weaknesses. Well, not necessarily find them, because you may have told them. And then what they would do is they start to triangulate. So a narcissist will end up having more of a relationship with your parents than you do with your parents. So if you're using drugs, for an example, they'll be the one that will go and tell your mum and dad that you're taking drugs, right? And they'll start to triangulate, and what they'll do is they'll then forge a narrative which the parents will start to believe about the individual, that's all been set up. So if you can see somebody that's got and uses your parents and uses things from the past. Oh, but so you go to a narcissist and you say, listen, you borrowed my car the other day there and you didn't fill it up with petrol, right? Rather than saying, oh, I'm sorry, there's 20 quid, or listen, I was going to borrow it this afternoon, can I just do the journey I'm going to do and then I'll fill it up with petrol for you then, right? So rather than saying that, they would turn around and say, aye, but you borrowed my food processor or my NutriBullet and gave me it back and it never had the blade with it. So that was about 6 or 7 months ago. Why did you not phone me up and tell me that I still got it lying in my drawer somewhere, right? Because I'll not have thrown it out. So it's very, very tricky, and really try to get narcissism into 20 minutes is just very near impossible. But the point that I really want to get across is we're flinging words about that we don't know anything about. Now, as I've said to you, narcissism, you think it's somebody that's larger than life, that wants to be on a stage, that wants to be out there and wants to be seen and recognised for things they've never done, right? A great one, I'm watching one now. There's a group going about, and I know for a fact the amount of effort that's been put into it by many other organisations, yet any literature that's being written on it right now, it's them, narcissistic. Right? They are wanting recognition for things that they have actually not done. Now, people that you will see, narcissists, you could turn around and say, yeah, if you look at it, you'll see that people that are narcissists, I actually think councillors fall into that category somewhere. Don't think they're as high up as politicians, but somewhere in there, you've got narcissists, people that like to be on a stage and a role in the community that makes them look out that they're the leader, that they sit at the top of the triangle. Now, goodness, and then a minister joins. I think ministers actually as well, if you look at the list of people that are drawing, narcissism that are drawing, they find it very intolerable. Narcissists find it intolerable to take on other people's points of view. You're not allowed to have a point of view. As I said to you, they find it very, very difficult to listen, to actually have an emotional connection is very hard. If you were having sex with a narcissist, they would probably be filing their nails while you're emotionally involved in this secretion of love. Narcissists aren't able to be present. They are very reactive. They react very, very quickly. But there again, just because your partner or friend that you're noticing goes, well, he's right, he has a very disproportionate response to the situation that's actually going on here. However, if it was a narcissist that you were dealing with and you were the one that was acting out all the time, they would be telling you that you were having a disproportionate response to the event, because that would be part of the gaslighting to try and make you believe that you were the one off your head, right? When in actual fact, their behaviour, you get to a point, and I really think we need to do this as well. Most of you that are listening to this are adults, and it gets to a point where we've really got to just be honest and turn around and say, our education has brought us to such a point that it takes two to tango, right? So let's not blame that there's a narcissist out there. Let's use that as growth to look at why our lack of self-worth is so low that we would enter into a relationship with a narcissist. Now, you go and look at that on some new age website, it's going to tell you because you're an empath. You might be. Don't get distracted by that. Now, as I've said, narcissism is very, 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 it's wide. It's a hugely complicated subject. It's not just as simple as somebody's fixated with fashion, clothes, cars and money and social status that they manipulate their environment in order to get what they want. It's a very lonely place to live. As I said to you, 100%, I can put my hand up. And to the degree and levelance that I have had up until probably about 5 years ago, anxiety, which went untreated for probably 20 or 30 years. When my anxiety was peaking, I'm sorry, I wasn't able to listen to anything that anybody in a room was saying, and I felt completely dissociated because I was just sitting on this really high revving engine. It was like my motorbike engine was revving full pelt and we weren't going anywhere. We were just stood stationary, sitting in a room surrounded by people not able to hear anything that anybody was saying. And then I would blurt something out at the most inappropriate time. And that would mean, are you listening to anything I'm saying? And, you know, well, oh, okay, tick the box. That's a narcissistic trait. Yeah, okay, it is a narcissistic trait. But for me, that trait was being born out of a high level of anxiety, right? Deep insecurity as well. Now, the majority of narcissists are born out of a deep insecurity, and there's a huge incongruence in their life. It's like an incongruence of being. If you look at people in high levels of authority, judges, not all, you know, politicians and things like that, they run around projecting this false image of themselves onto the world, that they're in control, they're the master of all, they're the master of the universe. And then we get in an old tabloid paper a picture of them hung up with chains, you know, with an orange in their mouth, with gaffer tape round about it, and they're being whipped by a dominatrix. Or they're happily married, yet they find themselves in homosexual clubs, etc, etc, etc. Because there's one part of them has got this really projected authoritative self, but there's a very fragile ego in there, because it's the fragile ego that's projecting the image of the false self out into the world, when in actual fact they feel completely and utterly terrible, and that they go and pay somebody in order to be shouted at and clean the toilet floors with a toothbrush. Now, you know, somebody that, you know, is out there in the world, and, you know, a woman or man in their 30s, 40s or 50s, or even 60s are out there, and they're in the world as an authoritative figure, and then they've got to have a boo-boo blanket, like they go home and they still suck a dummy tit. So in the comfort of their own home, when the doors are closed, you know, they hang up their £1 million a year lifestyle and go in and suck on a dummy tit and dress up in a nappy, because one part of them feels extremely insecure, and a lot of narcissistic traits can come out of insecurity. So when you're asking these questions, don't just go and jump in and start blaming that people are narcissists. You've really got, that's why it's got to be professional, and even beyond counselling, and sometimes it has to be really taken up with, you know, pharmacology, or indeed psychology or psychiatry, because in a lot of cases, simple counselling won't work. Why? Because there's nothing wrong with them. They would never say sorry. A narcissist will never go. A narcissist will find it very, very difficult to do step 4, 5 and 6 of the 12-step process. They find it very, very difficult to even do step 1. So in a lot of cases, narcissism is what's driving substance abuse. So when you do see somebody go into recovery and you're working a programme with them, you will find that they find it very, very difficult to accept. They're never wrong. And, you know, if you look around and start looking at things. I mean, even Christianity, and it's, you know, you go up into some of those islands that I love exploring in Scotland, and their church systems and how they live, you know, and I totally get it. I agree with lots of it, that place should be shut on a Sunday. We shouldn't hang out or washing on a Sunday, you know. We should actually take a day to reflect and be with family and friends and all the rest of it, and that's no religion. But there is actually a subculture of religious people, culture of people that meet and congregate, and they actually believe that they're the chosen ones. Fact. Now that's scary when you start to think about that, because they actually go to church every Sunday, and a Wednesday, and a few other days of the week, and they have this belief system that's ingrained, and then they've indoctrinated that belief system into their children's mind, that they are the chosen ones and they're the only ones going to heaven. Now, if you cannot read that and not see that that is a narcissistic belief system that's been imprinted and programmed into children, right, that those children are not going to have a mental health problem, I'm sorry. Oh, God, I just find that absolutely preposterous. I find it so difficult to wrap my head around that there's still cultures of Christianity that think that that's acceptable. Oh, God. We're the only people going to the chosen one. Come with us. And, you know, I'm slagging sect and doctrines of religion, because religion, in my opinion, has got to be about inclusion. Yet, for the majority of the years that it's been about, all it's done is really validated separation. Right? Why have we got Catholics, Protestants, Gospel Hall, Jehovah Witness, Muslim. At the end of the day, we all want peace and we all want freedom. But more than that, we'll value separation, and my church is better than your church, and my God's better than your God, and our meetings are better, and nothing will touch me. I've got God by my side. He's my superpower. It's just really, so narcissism has probably been going on a lot longer and been installed in a lot through religious education. We want to blame social media. We want to blame social media and the rise of the millenniums and individualism and all these kind of things. And the truth of the matter is, there probably always has been a degree of narcissism, and as I said, there can be healthy aspects of it. I'm Freudian by nature. If I'm going to go and read a book to blast my brain out, it'll be a book with a Freudian influence. And in our psychosexual stages of development, there's the omnipotent stage, and then omnipotent, which I could talk about tomorrow because it begins with O. But we could get stuck in certain stages of our development. And, if we have a trauma through any of the rev range of our developmental years, we can be stunted in that place because we weren't allowed to fully grow and express ourselves in those areas. And perhaps narcissism's coming out of a stunting of the omnipotent stages in one of the psychosexual stages of development. But nonetheless, as I say about everything, I would encourage you, if you are in a relationship with a narcissist, you could be feeling very depressed. You could be feeling that you're not good enough. You could be feeling that you don't matter. You could be feeling that you're worthless, that you're useless, that you're starting to doubt your own sanity, that you're starting to doubt what you said was real. And if you're starting to have any of those feelings, stroke symptoms, horrible word, but if you are, I would absolutely encourage you to do your research. And a great free service for that is the fellowship, the 12-step process. Work the 12 steps on it, get yourself into a meeting. And there is Codependence Anonymous, and indeed Children of Dependence Anonymous, CODA. So these are very helpful things when you are repairing or recovering from a narcissistic relationship. Morning, Adam, how are you? I'm just on the phone, but I'll walk down with you. I'll catch up with you, buddy. I'd love a chat with you. So, yeah, it's not just as clear-cut and as simple as this person eludes confidence and all the rest of it. It's very, very complicated, and always do your own research. And if you are struggling with any of that which has been mentioned, don't hesitate to ping me an email or a private message, and I'll do my best to signpost you into what could be effective for you. You need to take the bull by the horns. Only you can change it. And I wish you all the very best with it. It's a very, very complicated thing, but hey, let's not just start jumping about branding everybody as a narcissist. Have a fantastic Sunday, beautiful day, enjoy what you can of it, and if you're able to meet up with family and friends, as I did yesterday, saw my mammy for the first time in 13 weeks. It was brilliant, and got to see my sisters as well, man, that was awesome. And then I was so craved for people that I went down and met my Uncle Peter. Well, he's not really my uncle, and he's not really my godfather either, but I've always been taught to believe that he was those two things, because that's what my parents told me. But in actual fact, he's none of the two, but I love him as if he is. And I went and saw him last night. We sat in the garden, and it was just awesome. It was amazing. It was just best weekend yet, man. It was great. I'm getting emotional. So if you're able to do that too, man, get in about it. It's awesome. And have a great day. Wish you all the very best. Thank you.